Hello, beautiful people. Thank you very much for being here today. My next guest is an absolutely beautiful, amazing person, Anne Metcalfe. Hello, Anne. How are you today?
I'm very well, Jaja. Thank you so much for inviting me to this Awakening Summit.
My greatest pleasure, love. Anne is going to talk about a lot of things about her awakenings and obviously her spiritual duties and everyday, what should we say, chores you do. And so let us start it up with asking Anne, what time did you get up in the morning?
This morning I was up at 4:14
Really?
a.m.
I thought so. Yes.
Yeah, that's the usual time I give, between 4 and 4:30 every morning.
And what do you do when you get up?
Well, when I get up, I go outside and I just kind of get grounded with the earth, and I do a invocation to the 7 directions. You've got the cardinal directions, which is north, south, east, and west, and then sort of Father Sky, and I also include the creator of all that is in that. And the other one is Mother Earth and beloved Terra. And then the 7th one is our spirit within, our essence heart. So I do this invocation every morning that actually came from a spirit camp for kids training that I took last year.
Mm-hmm.
So these children are learning to do that when they go to camp. So I do that's the first thing I do. And then, I have a bit of hot water, sometimes with lemon juice. And then I come upstairs and I read a book. It's called The Knowledge Book.
Wow.
And I read one fascicule every day. And it's actually a book for the golden age.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And where did you get this book from?
I got it when I was at a psychic fair selling my jewelry. And there was this book, and I'll just show it to you so that those who can relate to it, because you need to be of that conscious heart for it to resonate with you. And I got it from my friend Barb, and I've been reading it every day for almost 2 years.
Excellent.
Yeah, it has a special energy and coding within the words. It's written in English, originally written in Turkish.
Turkish?
Yeah, and it's been translated into, I think, 7 different languages.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a book of the golden age. It's a book of light, it's got secret keys for the future and of the unknown, because there's so many things that we delve into. And it's about the secret of the totality of all that we are.
Excellent.
And yeah.
So do you think you would like to, or if we are asking you nicely, will you tell us something about this golden age?
Well, the golden age is what's coming up for the future of humanity and all humankind throughout the universes. So this book is for us now. It's actually the next 2.5 centuries is our time to really awaken. And then there's another 500 years where this book will be read. And this golden age is where we are practicing, we are living the genuine, humane human, where there's infinite love, infinite tolerance, infinite patience, and infinite forgiveness. And the understanding that all humankind, all living kind, we're all brothers and sisters, and it's about the universal unification of all belief systems, all religions on the planet and beyond.
Mhm.
And this golden age is where we are living that consciousness, where there's respect for all living things on the planet and beyond. So the things that we don't know, we will be introduced to as we raise our levels of consciousness, as our frequency and as our evolvement
Mhm.
comes together as we move forward. Then this book is that book. It's a single book, single one, single God. And it combines all the religious books into this book, plus the creator source information. So it's a book of knowledge and learning. And they've purposely taken out the sacredness of the book so that it doesn't, taboos aren't created around it as people read it, because then you're not praying to it. You're just receiving that loving energy that comes from within the words as you read it.
Fascinating. It is. It sounds very similar to Sufism. I don't know if you are familiar with Sufism or not, but coming from Turkey, yeah.
I know a little bit of, and it's interesting that the translator of this book, she was actually, the woman's name is Bulant Barak, and she spent 12 years channeling through the Alpha channel to record what they wanted to tell us. And she's actually the same energy being that Rumi was 800 years ago.
Yeah.
So she's come back into this lifetime to present us with the knowledge book so that we too may just raise our frequencies and be more love and create that peace within. And as we know, as we create the peace within, there's that peace just emanates through all our cellular consciousness, through just everything we do and be during the day, and that just radiates into the earth. And that is received through different ways. I mean, we're multidimensional beings. We also have these physical telomeres, which are receivers, transmitters, that help us connect with the trees, with everything on the planet, although we're not consciously aware of it. And so these telomeres are just going, picking up energy all over the place. And yeah, I mean, to me, it's just such a beautifully, divinely designed system for us to be here on the planet at this time.
Yes, it is very interesting. I mean, I am teaching very similar understandings, although I call them metaphysical interrelations. Just another sort of approach to it, but it actually is the same in every way whatsoever. Do you really think that, because you mentioned many times that human beings all over the universe sort of thing, do you think there are other planets where there are human beings?
Oh, absolutely.
What are human beings? Sorry.
Well, the human being, humankind. So there are other beings that are like us. Some systems, we actually don't look quite similar, but we are the humankind. And in one system, the blood of that person is actually gold. But there are, I mean, when you think about, and even quantum physics knows, there are billions of universes, and we're just like a little speck of that understanding that there are, if there are billions of universes, the logic and the intellect just has to say there has to be more humankind. all over. And whether, I mean, our little solar system with these planets that are focal points for information coming to us to help us remember that we're more metaphysical than physical. And there just has to be. It just makes sense. But why would we be the only humankind in all the universe? And if there's universes upon the universes, to me, it just makes sense that there are more. And maybe on the planet at this time, looking like you and I, and what other we call extraterrestrials, well, they're just visitors from, they're our elder brothers and sisters, actually.
Right. I asked you only because in my understanding and in my teachings, I only call people, human beings who are on Earth. I know that there are beings all over the place, and I know there are billions of galaxies, but for me, a human being is an amalgamate of the physical body that is part of the evolutionary process and the soul that is from the universe. So these two are actually make up the human being. So actually, if I look at it from this point of view, I would say that yes, there are beings all over, but I would say human beings are not only on Earth, because as far as I know, there are 8 planets in the universe, very, very similar to Earth as such. So the atmosphere is the same, you know, and the Earth, the planet itself is made up of the same structure and everything. So the physical body is very, very similar to ours, because our physical body has everything what Earth has, you know, the planet itself. So yeah, there are few, as I said, I know of 8. We go and visit them from time to time with my students.
Wonderful.
And you know, we do a lot of astral traveling, so it is very fascinating. And yes, I think there are billions of universes. The universe is an ever expanding space because it always grows and grows and grows. Okay, what do you think about humanity on Earth? Are we special in any way? Or I don't mean we are better than anybody, but is there anything unique about Earthlings? I call human beings Earthlings.
Well, from what I understand, we are here as part of what you were saying, the evolution of creation itself. We're here from different dimensions, and it's kind of a planet where we're doing work. We're how do I say this? Because we come, some of us come for different purposes. We're all human beings, and you know, you look at sort of what's going on in the world, and some people are, you know, they're quite happy with their 9-to-5 job, and that's what they do, and that's who they are. And, you know, they might do kind things, but their focus is just kind of in their world. And then there's other humans that are going, there's something more. I mean, that's what got me started. You know, I started reading some books, and I'm going, and I read that the universe wanted to be more of itself. And going, like, really? Going, fascinating. And so how do I be more of myself? Because I was one of those sort of sleepy people for like 50 years.
Yeah,
And I was just, you know, I did things, you know, I was Girl Guide leader, and I teach, and I'm doing all these different things, but not really conscious of and aware of my relationship with people around me, with the earth herself, with the trees. And so humanity is this collective consciousness of, I call myself an embodied energy, light being, lovingly in service on the planet. So the work that I'm sort of doing, have been doing, and perhaps getting into doing in the future is a loving service to help this universal unification of just creating a change and creating more of peace and harmony. Because when we do that on the earth, that emanates throughout our galaxy, throughout the universe, and it's felt. We're not, it's like that fractal energy that Greg Braden would talk about. And so what's happening and what here is happening out there. So, and I think part of humanity's role is to awaken and to create that peace on the planet and understand that we are brothers and sisters. Yes. We're not separate. And it's interesting because we come in here as a veiled awareness, kind of forgetting that we are of spirit, of creation, and then sort of finding those little keys or doors that open up and sort of shine the light, going, oh, I'm more than that, and there's more to that tree than I ever knew, or the flowers, or the soil, because the soil is just so rich, and all those microorganisms and whatnot, they're all communicating with one another, and yet we don't understand that. And I think humanity we need to wake up to a greater understanding of who we are or why we're here. Does that help?
I think it is possible. Very nice, amazing. Do you think it is possible for the whole humanity as such to wake up? Or if it is possible, how is it possible?
Yeah, and that's a good question. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Anything is possible. And when, and as John Lennon, I was listening to his music, imagine. Yep. So when we imagine it, so it can be. And how do we do that? And how it is, so it is possible for us to awaken. For most of us, but some of us, it's in one sense, we may not awaken to that greater consciousness, that greater feeling. And that's okay, because there's some other plan for them in their level of raising their consciousness, their development, their evolvement. And I think, you reach that level of consciousness where there are enough people that are awakening, and those who are awakened are helping those awaken to that, just that greater love and consciousness, and so much more. And so you come up to that level where all of a sudden it's like filling your cup to its overflowing. And as it overflows, those around you and around the planet are slowly waking up and going, oh, wow, they just feel so much better. You talk about health and energy, and it's like, oh, wow. And then it shifts, it causes a shift in our thinking, and sort of, because we've got all these programs going that have come from the past and the current lifetime, and they're these old conditionings that the knowledge book talks about, and we need to let them go. And we need to let the ego go, because when we can let those egoic thoughts of greed and survival and all those things, then humanity can come to that level, we're going, wow, this is a beautiful planet. And we will continue on that journey.
Yeah, it is very interesting and very exciting what you are saying here. However, I find it a bit sort of, how should I put it, naive in one way or another, yeah? Because it is a pure well-wishing for the universe and for everybody. However, we are human beings, and as human beings, we have to fight with ourselves, first of all, with our thoughts, with our upbringing, with our society, with everything else around us, you know, and obviously we've been coded to do certain things by society, not by the universe as such, and they seem to be far more powerful than what the universe is telling us, mostly because, you know, society is here and the mass media and everything is here. So they put all those thoughts into our head, and we cannot really free ourselves to get into our brain any of the universal thoughts, because it is sort of crowded and clouded and everything. So what do you think? How can we fight against that? Or how can we fight against the mass media? Or actually, the point is, we always want to fight against something, but we created the mass media. I mean, human beings created it. Human beings created everything what is great here and bad and whatever it is, you know, we are fighting against. We created it. So it is very interesting how we don't pay attention to certain things, then they sort of envelop us, you know, and take us over because we didn't pay attention to them. And after we fight against them, but putting the responsibility on somebody else's shoulder. Yeah, we always say, yeah. But I don't mean that, but the politicians are doing that. But we elected the politicians, no? I mean, it exactly. You understand? So it comes back to us all the time. So how can we get out of this catch-22? What do you think?
Yeah, and it does feel like a catch-22 because we did co-create it. And part of it is we co-created it in a level of sort of low consciousness, right? So our past, and you look at things that happened in the past and in our sort of recent history, even just sort of hundreds of years ago and, 50 years ago. And, the wars that we have fought over religions in the past, because we all wanted what we thought was the best. This is what it should be. And then I think that's part of our, I'd like to say, the old energy nature. I mean, that is kind of the nature of humankind when we're at that level of consciousness where we're not thinking of, like the First Nations people, they think of 7 generations from now. So what are they doing to the planet that will affect 7 generations? So what we're doing right now and flowing down the river and affecting that village and the village after that and the village after that. And that comes back to that level of consciousness. And I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm still working on this whole process, right? I mean, that's part of our evolution. We were given these experiences and, we've had some horrible tragedies in the past, some natural and some human-made tragedies just in the last 10, 20 years. And those are experiences that how can we make it better? And I mean, we need to start with ourselves. To me, that's the first thing. Find that peace within ourselves and know that, okay, the earth is her own essence, being. She actually doesn't need saving, which is what I thought for many years. I thought, I'm going to be an avid environmentalist and save the earth. Well, then somebody pointed out, well, Anne, the earth actually, she doesn't need saving. She can just live just fine without us. So, oh, okay. So my focus has changed a little bit, but I think, you know, when you think about all the things that are going on, especially in today's world, and it just seems so crazy and unimaginable that, in a sense, I think in time, we've given our power to these politicians, these powers that be. And the question is, how do we take that power back? How do we empower ourselves to kind of, in one way, kind of stand up and say, no, that's not the consciousness of what I want. I don't want that level of consciousness and that lack of integrity running my city, running my country. And you're right, because we vote them in. And they are almost a reflection of our consciousness.
Yes.
So we're getting it back. And so I'm going, and I know that a lot of these young people coming up, they've been on the planet for maybe 15, 20, 30 years. And the new kids coming in, they have a greater awareness of the earth, the cosmos, of spirit within them than I know I did when I was born. And so they are coming up with that new level of consciousness and awareness. And they will become the politicians. They will become leaders. They will become leaders in companies and the corporations, and they will work their way through, because light is stronger than the dark. And I think if we just believe that and just say, you know what, yeah, it seems kind of fearful right now, but I'm choosing to be this as light. And I know it, you know, it's kind of naivety and the airy fairy kind of thing, but you know, these kids who are seeing fairies in the trees now, and some people our age have seen them all their life, and going, yeah, you know, I have a friend who sees unicorns. I'm going, wow, like that's amazing. And yeah, would I love to see a unicorn? Yes. Do I have the capacity? Yes. Because if we are the universe within every cell of our consciousness, we have that. And it's just getting the keys and, you know, loving ourselves. You know, sometimes we need to work with people, with others, you know, like you and others that you'll be talking to help us take those steps, because it's first steps. And I think we're being given that opportunity now to take those steps, you know, just stand strong. And, you know, some of it's not ours, and not to take it on. And I learned over the group I was in, and life is for you. And if it's for you, then those experiences that you thought were just, oh my, what is happening to me? And why is all this thing happening to me? And you're going, oh, but if the universe put you here on the planet to experience that, is that enough of a catalyst to help you change? Because that's where we're being asked. I mean, there's many things, but part of it is being asked, what are we willing to change in ourselves? What habits, what passions have we got that is sort of co-creating what we have happening on the planet?
Sure, that is absolutely true. Caught my attention what you said earlier about the 7 generations. I come across the 7 generations so many times and in so many teachings. Now, what my problem is with the 7th generation, because I have some problem with it, and that's what I want to discuss with you. Actually, 7 is one of the main numbers in the universe. I mean, the structure of the universe and everything else. So actually, it is very natural that it is 7 generations what they talk about. But what I am saying is 7 generations from me, yeah? But if I talk about my mother, let's say, it is 7 generations from her, yeah, down. My grandmother, 7 generations from my grandmother. So actually it is a chain. And it is 7 generations of my grandmother is my 9th generation and not the 7th. And I am on this chain. So why we talk about 7? Do you understand?
I do understand. Yes.
And I am absolutely sure that it was picked up just because it is a number of the universal structure as such, because it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, they talk about the code, we take on the code for 7 generations, yeah, and the karma for 7 generations. But if we do that, we actually carry the whole history of mankind on us, because it goes back to the very beginning. You cannot stop at 7 generation because it's not possible. The 7 is always down there.
Yeah.
And in the 7 is still 7, so it's my 14th already. You understand? I mean,
I do.
it is just absolutely impossible to see that if you think about it logically. So actually, and I think it is a very, it is an idea to sort of catch people, and keep people within some kind of boundaries, because you are always guilty. You always feel guilty. Okay, I am carrying my 7th generation, so I have to carry some kind of burden on me. I am here and I am taking it on. So actually, this idea, I think, imprisons people rather than free them up in one way or another. Do you understand what I?
It's an interesting concept as you talk about that. Yeah. And I suppose it could, because I was looking at it from another point of view of looking into the future and not connecting. I mean, it is because, I mean, our grandmothers are probably our great grandchildren kind of thing. And they've come into the future to sort of keep that step going. And yeah, that burden thing, let me just sort of sit with that for a sec. Because I suppose it could be a burden, but it could also just be, for me, it's like you're sowing seeds. There's something about as you're sowing these seeds for the future, and maybe like the wisdom of the grandmothers and great grandmothers will help fuel those new seeds, but without the without the conditionings that they were in. Because when I think about my mother, and she was who she was based on her cultural conditioning, and her mother, born in the 1800s, was born of that conditioning, and there was a lot of hardship. And so I guess when you're thinking about, okay, we're going to the future, are we dragging chains behind us? But I think they are like shoulders, or maybe we could think of them as sort of shoulders moving forward to a greater understanding. And the 7 actually goes on forever, but without being the burden, because I mean, if we're here doing the work, and I like to think that we're lovingly in service, And sometimes it feels like hard work. But if we think of it as just, I mean, there's a total system in the universe.
Yes.
There's a hierarchy
Oh, yeah.
within the universe.
Yeah.
And we are doing our work because we chose to.
Sure.
Right?
True.
Yeah.
Yes. I think the point is, and if we want equality and we want to look at each other as equals because we are brothers and sisters, I don't really like the idea of brothers and sisters because the family fights all the time. And I mean, they are far more vicious to each other than anybody else within families, usually. Because they are very close together and they understand each other and they can hurt each other. The closer you get to somebody, the more possibilities you can see to hurt the person if you wanted to. Of course, to cause her joy and beauty and whatever is the same stuff. So what I really think that we shouldn't look at like our mothers and our grandmothers, but mothers and grandmothers. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Because your grandmother is my grandmother, because we come from the same place. You understand? And
Yes.
because of that, I can learn from anybody's grandmother and I can teach anybody's grandchildren and whatever it is, So we don't need to stick to generations as such. I mean, not our generations as such, because it doesn't make sense. To me, it doesn't really make sense in any way. If we want to embrace each other, then we have to sort of destroy the boundaries of families. I know it sounds really harsh one way or another because people like the families, but you have to be able to stand on your own and you have to create your own reality. And your reality might not be anything like your mother's or your grandmother's reality.
Right.
In any way. And for me, the physical body, because the connection, when we talk about our family as such, the connection is only through the physical body. It's not a soul connection. And that is something we really need to understand, I think, to understand that, to not to cling to people of the family, because they are not better, not worse than anybody else, to be honest. And what is a big deal about it? Your soul comes from a different place, and your physical body is sort of related to each other. So I look at it from a bit different point of view, but I am actually talking to you because you are having another kind of approach, but it's at the end of the road, it is very similar to mine, but it's been sort of having a different angle to the whole situation.
Exactly. Yeah. And it just goes back to just humankind. We are these human beings. And and if we're all from the same one source, then I mean, we're all sort of related. And and I mean, I know people who don't feel connected to their family, their birth family, at all, because and they don't have that connection. But some of them have that connection to spirit, to God, and that is that joyful loving connection that they feel, and then they meet other people, and then there's that togetherness sense that they have. And I know ancient societies, I mean, from reading again from the knowledge book, they talk about the Atlanteans, not the Atlantis, but the Atlanteans that are one of the originators on the planet. And it was like all mothers looked after all children. Fathers looked after all children.
Yes, but that is
right?
a common sense. So
But kind of what you were saying, that we're and so, and then this, how do we fold that into sort of kind of what's going on the planet, and you've got all these people, these humanitarians who are helping. They're not their children, but they're helping children in other countries, because they see them as as a being, as a living being that deserves respect and a better life for themselves that they're not getting. And so there's that, for some people, that's where helping one another, but they do.
I mean, there are many societies on earth where they still do that. And if you look at the Arabic countries, none of them had homes for orphanages, or whatever, because children were looked after. If their father or mother was killed or died, they were looked after. I mean, nowadays it's very difficult because they wiped out half of the generations of people in those countries. And of course, they started to build orphanages. And of course, the charities are going there to keep them something, then make some money on the side, of course, all that stuff. But it is, for me, it is a extraordinarily beautiful understanding that your children are not better than anybody else's children. They are children. And you just, you take care of them as much as you can. Mm-hmm. And you give them food, you give them education, and you look after whatever you want. And it is extraordinary. So it is very interesting. But on Earth, there are certain civilizations, they do that still.
True enough.
Like the Romanis. I mean, Romanis is much better than saying gypsies, because gypsy is a lifestyle, but obviously Romani is an ethnic minority. I mean, children are children. That's it, No others. If you want to go somewhere, you don't need to have a babysitter. Your neighbor is going to say, yeah, I look after, don't worry. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that sense of, I guess, inclusiveness for one thing. And then when you have that sense of community and communal understanding, then you're not searching for, when things, if you have to go to work, and I understand, we're in with a population of nearly 8 billion people. How do you have that community sense globally, right? So it's, is it doable? I think so.
Yes.
We can. And as we sort of open up our hearts and I guess our pockets for some people, with the financial assistance, that those things can happen. But it's just this, I don't know, it's just, education, there's sort of, and even education itself, I think, will eventually change. Because for some kids, because I'm a teacher, and we're trying to put these kids into square pegs, and they're circles, and they don't fit the system, right? Yeah. And so they grow up frustrated and not having sort of their needs met in terms of okay, what's out there? How can I be this being? How can I be this sort of excited, intellectual, scientific person when you're sort of
Yes.
you're molded into fit into society, which goes back to the whole cultural thing you were talking about.
Yeah.
Because our cultures, I mean, each culture is different. I'm in Canada, so I've got that cultural sort of upbringing, and sort of getting everybody ready to go to work. Okay, you have kids, go to school, get a job, maybe have a family, and that's it. And we're so much more than that, and that's why I love Ava Goulet's program with the Spirit Camp for Kids, because kids are learning. They're learning tools to how to be in school, but if somebody's bullying them, they just learn, you know what? I'm just going to put this bubble around me.
Yeah.
And it's like this I mean,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the sense of protection, but it's them knowing that they have the strength to sort of hold back that negativity and not let it bother them, because they're beyond that, the negativities that are coming at them. And then just, just let like water off a duck's back, just, let it go. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there are programs happening on the planet to just help us grow, to find that inner strength so that we can be these beautiful humans that we came here to be.
Wonderful. Let us talk a bit about your extraordinarily beautiful books.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I've got 2 books, Rosie's Joy, A Magical Day in the Forest. And actually I wrote it's not a sequel, but it's the same book, but for younger kids with less words. And it's about community. And it's about being part of a community and that everybody matters. And it's a story of flowers beaming their colors and their light, and all the little centipedes working underneath, and the trees and the birds all being part of the community, like humanity, because we have all these unique potentials within us. And the Rosie is this little girl that comes into the forest and she learns to talk with the trees and the flowers, and learns to understand them, that they are living presences as well. And the name Rosie, actually, it's an acronym for remembering our soul spirit's innate expression.
Wow, very nice. Well,
Yeah. So I just, it came from a grade 2 class that I was teaching. I'm a substitute teacher. And these students were just, it was like the energy, Shasha, was just chaotic in the classroom. Some of them were struggling with just being who they were in a body, like, who am I in this body? Some were struggling with the learning, the whole education process. And it was like this disconnect with these kids in the classroom. So I came home and I sat down and I said, Spirit, I only see these kids once ever. What am I supposed to do? So I sat down, and in an afternoon, I wrote the skeleton of the story. And I happened to go back to the same class the week after. And I had taken pictures from the internet and put them and made it like a PDF. And it was story time. I said, you know what? We need to just sort of chill out, calm down before you go home. And the week before, they'd been working on fairy tales. And this little boy says, Mrs. Metcalfe, can I start the story once upon a time in a universe far away?
wow.
And I'm like, of course. So those are the first lines of my book.
Excellent.
Is it brings in the earth, and the earth waiting for souls like Rosie to come onto the planet, to
Wonderful.
learn more about themselves, the earth around them. So that was the Rosie's Joy book. And then I've just recently published a book of poetry that has basically 10 years of writing. And the it's called The Universe Calls, Dance With Me, A Journey into Love. So there's the poetry. And then of course, the other thing I just really would love to mention, because of our connection with the earth, and part of the Rosie's joy is our disconnect, not only with ourselves, with each other and ourself, our soul, and the earth herself, because we've lost that connection. And I talk about healthy eating now. I've got these hope chests that work with the earth to help us remember, to awaken, to remember we are these divine beings. And it's so complex. So the poetry book, I would just sit and look out my window and commune with the trees and the clouds and the sky and kind of whatever was kind of happening with me at the moment, and making that connection. And of course, I'm learning now that those thoughts are mine to share, but they're not really my thoughts. They've come from, what does the great thought ocean want me to share with people around the world? So, could I read a piece?
Yes, please. I just want
Could
to.
I? Could I?
Please do. Yes.
Now this one I wrote in 2013, so 11 years ago. And this was just the beginning of my kind of awakening journey. I've considered myself asleep for the last, I'm 71, so the last 50 years. At the age of 13, I said, God does not exist, because I didn't hear him in my head or my heart. So I just closed the door. Now, that's changed, thankfully. So this is called Joy and Happiness. I wish to know and be the joy, to be content with what is, because it is what it is. No more separation, no more illusion, the natural and peaceful knowing of no beginning or ending, perfect and content. Flow that allows movement of all things to be as they are, or to transform into the ever-present now. Beingness at its fullest, discovery and fulfillment, selfless self, presence of all that is in its purest form, formless. Sadness dwells in the shadows of human nature, remaining residue from unfulfilled experiences and lifetimes. Happiness rises with our frequencies and evolution to that place of genuine happiness in a full heart.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much for this beautiful poem. It's very nice. And with those words, we are going to conclude our conversation. It was a pleasure, an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And take good care of yourself. And we need you here on Earth to do a lot of good work. I am happy.
Joshua, I'm so grateful that you are hosting the summit and will continue with them. And for me to be able to be talking about these things is such a gift. I'm just so grateful.
I am so happy
Thank you.
feel this way, because not many people feel that, I mean, it's very interesting how everybody looks at the material side of everything rather than, first of all, the pleasure, really. I mean, to talk about certain things like that. We don't have other opportunities. We don't create those opportunities for ourselves. And I think they are just amazing. Thank you very much, Anne. Have a wonderful day. Look after yourself and see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.